My time's not up. I'm speaking for the Palestinian people. I've got a couple more lines and I'm going to say them. And if you want me off this stage, you're going to have to get security up here. And they better send an army, because EastEnders, like Palestinians, don't go down easy.
Labour Party 2018 showed that despite the daily onslaught from the right and the media, the vast membership stood behind Jeremy Corbyn and was ready for some radical changes.
2020 has turned into a lost year for conference, and there's no excuse for this. The so-called conference we have this year has ended up with no agenda, no planning, and a massive democratic deficit. Rather than being an empowering event where, due to the circumstances we're in, we had the chance for a mass member attendance without the usual cost incurred, we have an empty vessel and a missed opportunity to democratically decide policy at a critical point for the party and the country.
Like most of us, I believe that conference is at the heart of membership-led democracy. I attended for the first time in Brighton last year, 2019. I was a delegate from my CLP, Manchester Central.
Conference must be the supreme authority. What's the point in holding a conference unless it can make decisions? As it is, conference can decide whatever it likes, but its decisions are not binding on anyone, least of all the MPs, the officials, or the leadership. Let me recall one example of this, which I remember from my teenage years. In 1960, the Labour Party conference voted for unilateral nuclear disarmament. When the Tory government defence estimates were presented to Parliament in March 1961, Gaitskell, the leader of the party, imposed a three-line whip, ordering MPs to vote in favour of them. 5 Labour MPs voted against and had the whip withdrawn. The party leader blatantly defied the democratically expressed policy of the membership, while those who voted in line with the official policy of the party were expelled from the Parliamentary Labour Party. One of these MPs was Michael Foot, who later became briefly leader of the party. The reason I remember this was that another was my dad, Sidney Silverman, who remained all his life a socialist and a left-wing rebel.
Nor did Mr. Sidney Silverman MP, one of the speakers at their rally.
There's always been a problem with conference decisions having been ignored, but Tony Blair made things much worse by outsourcing policy making to the National Policy Forum. Before the National Policy Forum was set up, CLPs and trade unions brought motions to conference. Although individual members and CLPs are encouraged to contribute to the commissions, there is no compunction for them to take any of the suggestions submitted. With all these layers of bureaucracy, the influence of the grassroots and the unions is very much reduced.
National Executive Committee has real power when it comes to conference. It can submit rule changes right up to the last minute. Last year, for example, fast-track expulsions were merely waved through as part of a package that delegates could not even scrutinize and only go to see in the morning. This is no way to come to democratic decisions.
Our CLP put forward the rule change for open selection at the 2018 Labour Party conference, along with Labour International. We found that we had mass support from Labour Party members.
Open selection.
Open selection.
Open selection.
Open selection.
Open selections.
Open selection.
Open selections.
Open selection.
Open selection.
It was unanimous to support open selection.
On paper, we had enough votes for it to quite easily go through. Now, the problem was when we got to the conference that the NEC that we're currently standing for decided to knock open selection off the agenda. Then we had to basically get a point of order in right at the very start of conference to try and explain to the delegates how they needed to vote down the whole agenda for the conference. So it was quite a big deal. We had 90% of the CLPs voting with us, but the Unite trade union, it has about 40% of the trade union vote on its own, which is about 20% of the total conference vote. They voted to knock it off the agenda.
This is not just a matter of fairness, it's the most vital factor politically. Which of us can have any confidence that even if Labour under Corbyn had won the 2017 or 2019 elections, it would have been allowed to carry through its programme? Some Labour MPs openly boasted that they would not support a Corbyn government. They're happy to accept their members' hard work campaigning for their election, but when it comes to their actions in Parliament, they refuse to be accountable.
There is so much we could all be doing now to make conference the sovereign body. Don't leave being a conference delegate to the usual suspects. It's your right to send your full delegate quota. Do it. That year, Manchester Central sent 6 delegates, even against the background of us not having enough money.
One thing that desperately needs addressing is how CLP delegates are funded. At present, with CLPs receiving just £2.50 per member per annum, conference is pushed down the agenda for many CLPs, where it's just an expense they can't afford.
Until the bureaucratic stranglehold of the National Policy Forum is broken, conference cannot be sovereign.
One of the things that we need to change about the conference is that a rule change cannot be heard for 3 years, or 3 conferences to be precise. Without open selection, for example, that seems quite a long time to wait in what is quite a volatile political situation. Now, there is one way around it, and that is that the NEC itself could right that wrong and put in a motion for open selection.
But what else can we do? Ensure that both your branch and your CLP are thinking about conference. Ask them to organise meetings to discuss conference, to run training sessions open to all members, hold meetings about motions.
The defeat of open selection shows the need for making sure that the trade union link with the Labour Party is a genuine link between socialists and rank and file trade unionists up and down the country, and not just a bureaucratic link for some unaccountable leaders to do as we see fit. They need to actually represent their members properly.
The role of the unions at conference was one of the most confusing things to get our heads around. I think we were all new first-time members at conference. Why did it appear that GMB, voting against the motion to get rid of private education in favour of greater investment in state schools, had already been made? How had their membership been consulted? And why were they unswayed by the almost unanimous wishes of the delegate membership?
I don't think it's fair that the MPs are the sole gatekeepers to leadership and deputy leadership contests. I think the affiliates, the trade unions and the members should also have the right to trigger one as well. And that would be best done at the conference, massively increase the power and the authority of that conference, which would mean people would have to take it a lot more seriously, and it would be closer to becoming the genuine sovereign body of the party.
Let's not forget, this party belongs to us. The job of the NEC is to make sure that they are accountable to us. I'm Roger Silverman of West Ham Constituency Labour Party.
My name is Carol Taylor-Spedding from Wansbeck CLP.
My name is Chaudhry, Qamer Iqbal from Ealing Southall CLP.
I'm Alec from Rochester and Strood CLP.
I'm Ekua Bayunu, Manchester Central CLP.
I'm Steve Maggs, I'm from Harbour CLP, and standing alongside my comrades from the LLA for the NEC elections.